woman's looks does not matter. It is how much she is doing for you that matters.
Expectations lead to disappointment. Expectations lead to arguments in a lot of ways.
You should not expect somebody to act a certain way, and when they do or don't, you should have a backup plan for that.
As I'm trying to figure out what's happening, why 40% or 50% of black women over 40 are not married or have these in-depth relationships. All right, welcome to another edition of Why Love Waits. I think I have a logo or something that's stuck in the way, but I'm going to try to get rid of it as it pops out and in and out of here. So there we go. And so we have our panel on tonight. Just excited about each opportunity that we get to talk about some of the subjects that are definitely something that people, especially folks of color, find very not only interesting, but always trying to find answers to one. And one of the things that I want to kind of start out with today is just, a thought process of where our foundation starts. And my belief in where I'm coming from, and we can check with the panel on that, is that it is good that men and women are together. It is something that God intended to happen. It is not something where we're supposed to be separated. And so when I hear statistics like in 1950 that less than 15% of women that are at the age of 40 had not been married, and then we move up to 2024, and that number is now at 50%, it throws an alarm for me. And just I was looking up as I'm doing, it's 2025 now, and I'm doing my Bible in a year, so I'm going through the first part of Genesis. And in Genesis 2:18, it says, "The Lord God said, it is not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." And then I jumped into Ecclesiastes 4:9-10, and it said, "Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help him." And then I looked at Proverbs 18:22. It says, "He who finds a wife finds what is good and receives favor from the Lord." And so those three verses, and just knowing culture and knowing my own experience and knowing, I do believe it's better. And so we find ourselves in this mixed quandary of, what are those expectations then if we are to be together? What are those things that have to happen or need to happen if things go? And so we've had some interesting conversations this week as we prepare for the show to see, what it's been interesting to see what folks actually believe. And I wanted to start out with the video today that is on YouTube, not on YouTube, I guess it's on Facebook, that kind of sets the stage for our conversation that we are having. So I'll start out there, then I'll have our panel introduce themselves, and then we will just take it from there. So let me go ahead and present. Someday we'll be so big that I won't be the engineer on here who's making sure that all this works. But right now, as we continue to grow, I am the guy. So I apologize if it takes me a little bit of time to get things ready, even though I have it ready. All right. Do you guys see the screen yet? I just want to make sure that you're seeing the screen. All right. So here we go. We'll go ahead and play the video.
Okay, so I have another question.
Okay, you're not gonna skip on past that. So it's not like,
I
oh no, you're not going. No, I run my show. And the thing is, you ladies gonna have to understand that you may love your child, but to the world, it's just another person, and it does lower your value. And I don't know why in the Black community where we used to. I'm 51 years old, and I remember women used not to. when the woman got pregnant, she used to have to go out of the country. I mean, go to the country. You couldn't be around folks being a baby mama. You had to go somewhere. And now we act like it ain't no big deal. And then we want to always talk about the daddy. Well, you picked him. You decided to have unprotected sex with a man and then carry a child to term. He has one choice to have sex with you. The mother decides whether or not a child is born and kept. You could have a child and put it up for adoption. So, due respect, the world does not owe baby mamas sympathy like that. It's a choice. And my mama was one, and she'll tell you the same damn thing.
I hear you.
What are the consequences of having a child out of wedlock?
The consequences of having a child out of wedlock is that the dad may not be there.
Hold on. I need you. Hold on. I'm not your. Slow down. Consequence of having a child out of wedlock is it lowers your value. You keep putting it off to the dad, but guess this is the United States of America. No child gets born in this country unless a woman wants it to.
Okay, so I have another question.
Okay, you're not gonna skip on past that. So it's not like,
I
oh no, you're not going. No. I run my show, and the thing is, you ladies gonna have to understand that you may love your child, but to the world, it's just another person, and it does lower your value. And I don't know why in the Black community we used to. I'm 51 years old, and I remember women used not to. When the woman got pregnant, she used to have to go out of the country. I mean, go to the country. You couldn't be around folks being a baby mama. You had to go somewhere. And now we act like it ain't no big deal. And then we want to always talk about the daddy. Well, you picked him. You decided to have unprotected sex with a man and then carry a child to term. He has one choice to have sex with you. The mother decides whether or not a child is born and kept. You could have a child and put it up for adoption. So, due respect, the world does not owe baby mamas sympathy like that. It's a choice. And my mama was one, and she'll tell you the same damn thing.
All right, so we'll stop there. Kind of looped it to make sure that we got the whole thing in there. Let me stop our sharing and then start our show. And so welcome our panel today. And you guys, it's fun to see that you guys are on. And if you have any thoughts on, we'll just kind of start out on thoughts on the video and where we go from here.
Come on, James. Go ahead and start.
Yeah, James.
Well, since everybody else was muted or don't want to get into this fist fight, I will tell you that I agree with probably 99% of what he said. Now, sometimes things get misconstrued in the delivery of facts, but I believe he was 100% correct, right? Because ultimately, it's the woman's responsibility, right? Because you are carrying a child. I can't make you have the child or have an abortion or anything like that. And yes, as one of you, Tia said earlier in a text, well, I won't even go there.
Bring it. Come on, go there.
I'll let you bring it up. But when you said the misdirected ejaculation or whatever you said,
Irresponsible ejaculators.
I don't think I've ever seen an irresponsible ejaculation. It's there for a purpose, right? So whether responsible, it pays its bills or whatever it has, that has nothing to do with the woman's responsibility in the whole matter. Because you could turn me down and say, hey, I don't want to sleep with you. I don't want to deal with you. Okay, great. Then no baby will come of that. But if you let me in your life and you lay down with me and you know the consequences, you might get pregnant, right? Of course, they make prophylactics. They make all kind of contraceptives, right? And I'm not saying it's 100% the woman's burden, but I'll say 95% because I can't make you not have the child. And I'll leave it right there. I'm interested in what you got to say. Go ahead, Tia.
Oh no! What was the 5% that you? What's the 5% that's not her responsibility?
So the 5% is the man can use contraceptive, right? He could choose not to sleep with you, right? He could have got to know you a little better to understand where your mindset was, right? If you were ready to have a child at this time or not. So that's the little 5%. And I might be missing.
T, before you get going, I just want to define what responsibility means in this. When you say it's the women's responsibility, It's the woman's responsibility for what?
So ultimately, the child is the woman's responsibility, because the man could walk away once she has a kid, and he might pay child support or whatever. Some people don't want to do that, right? But the child comes out of a woman's body, not a man's. So the woman is responsible for caring for the child, nurturing.
And so, and I started the show before you got here, James. Biblically, do you think that
By paying the money and raising the child,
correct?
But it is the woman's
That
body.
it's the woman's responsibility to raise and bring and nurture a child.
So both of y'all cut out. Some of that most of that was cut off.
Okay, you want me to say it again? I'll say it again.
Yeah.
So a woman, the child comes out of a woman's body, not a man's. So I can't.
Understood?
Once the contraception has begun, right? Once the child is conceived, right? What can a man really do about it? You know, I can't make you give up the baby. I can't make you have it, right? If it comes out of your body, you're basically responsible for it unless the court says otherwise, right? Because some baby daddies, I was accused of having a son, right? And I found out later it wasn't mine. I'm kissing and hugging this grown man that's 27, right? The mother found me on Facebook. Oh, you have a son. He's 27. We don't want anything, just for you to meet him. Okay, great, right? So I met him. I paid for the hotel room. I even gave him a wristwatch. We hugging and kissing. He's putting all over Facebook. I found my father after all these years, right? And I knew something was wrong, right? He looked like me. So I said, okay. His mother was Italian. I said, okay, maybe Gene, let me check it out anyway. So I made an excuse because she kept stalling about the DNA test. I said, well, let me get a DNA. You don't need that. You don't believe me? What's wrong with you? Are you trying to say I'm lying? You're the only one it could be. Guess what? The DNA test, 0% of it was mine. 0% possibility that the child was mine, right? This grown man. So again, if you get pregnant, if you sleep with 3 guys, right? We know you're the mother of the child, but we don't know if any of the, 2 of those males are the father of the child. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but there's tests today to show, and so as soon as you find out, then if it's your child, is that child not your responsibility?
But you have to wait till the child's born, correct?
No, you don't have to. There's tests that you can do before.
Okay, well, I'm stuck in the past, but the DNA test that I took was the saliva test.
Okay.
Right? And you put it in the mail and you get it. So I don't know how you do it in the womb, but anyway.
So even after let's say the child is born and it's 2 months old and there's a DNA test and you find out it's yours, is that baby still not your responsibility 50%?
I'm saying it's my responsibility, but we're talking about as far as having a child, right?
Okay.
The woman has more responsibility in having a child because I don't have to be burdened with a big belly for 9 months, right? I'm not going to be the one getting morning sickness, right? If something happens to the child, right? Who's going to take the heat? The mother, because I'm not in the home with the mother. If we're not married, right? Basically your responsibility because your health and everything else is tied to the child for 9 months. Am I right?
I'll let Tia jump in here, but I agree with it's the woman's responsibility to carry the child, but I don't think the child itself is the woman's responsibility. That is whoever created it. So I'll let you ladies go because I don't want to take over. Go ahead, James. You can answer that.
It's both parties' responsibility. Let's be clear. We both made a decision to sleep with one another, to engage with one another. And so we are both mutually responsible for this seed that we have created. Now, my question would be, what is the conversations that are being had prior to laying down with each other? Because if the conversations are not happening, then you're going to have this saying of baby mamas and baby daddies. And it's disturbing to me, those terms in itself, because it diminishes both parties. But what is the conversation? Have you had a conversation of wanting to have children, have you had a conversation to understand that person's mental state, to know what it is? Like, is this just a hit it and quit it? What is it? Because if there's no conversation, then you are both setting yourself up for whatever comes. And so you have unhealthy people coming into a relationship, sleeping with one another, and the outcome is this beautiful, precious child that comes about that is in chaos, in turmoil, because of two adults who did not know how to effectively communicate with one another. And now, so it's not the dad's responsibility because he can't carry the child, or because they're not married. Absolutely not. Right? It is, just because you're not married doesn't mean that you can't be in the home and help nurture. But what does that conversation look like? If you two choose to say we're not having this child, that is a conversation between the two of you. But there's no conversation. That's what I'm hearing in what we watched in the video, the baby mamas, baby daddies. There's no effective communication happening, because just because you're not married doesn't make that child a bastard, doesn't make that child any less. It says everything about us as adults of not being healthy, healed, and whole, mind, body, and soul, to be able to articulate our words. It says everything about us that we don't have the capacity to bring life into this world and do what we are supposed to do. We are responsible to do. That's what it says to me. Where's the conversation? It's both parties responsible. I just have a whole, Tia, Tahani, somebody, because no, it is not just the woman.
So before you put them on, I'm just going to say this, right? I'm not saying if a child is born, right? I had a child out of wedlock. I took care of the child, right? He traveled with me everywhere I went, all over the world. He was my son. I acknowledged it. I sent him cards. I take care of him, so on and so forth. I'm talking about the prevention of a birth, right? Because it's ultimately up to the woman. I can't rape you. If you say, hey, let's lay down and do this, and then most guys don't think about a woman's mental state. Do you think me and Nathan are walking down the street and we say, oh man, she looks mentally stable? Let me have a deep conversation with her and see if I can have sex or not. But wait, excuse me, before you remove those panties, let's sit down and talk. Here's a contract. Are you mentally stable? We need to have a deeper conversation. Where is this going to lead? Guys don't do that. And then most people who have kids are not at our stage of development, 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old. Most people have kids when they're 16 to probably 25, right? So they're not having those adult conversations you are. And then there's the money part of it that comes in, right? When I was younger, I didn't have that kind of money. I know some people don't have jobs and have kids, right? When I grew up around the projects, I knew a whole bunch of females that had like 4 or 5 kids, 8 different baby daddies, all kind of stuff, was on welfare, food stamps, or whatever. Definitely didn't have those intelligent conversations that you're talking about. But once you get pregnant, right, the decision is yours to keep it or get rid of it. I'm just saying. Right? And a man should take responsibility. I took responsibility for my son, right? But I will say the ultimate decision to have a child or not rests with the mother. I'll leave it there.
Why?
Yeah, because it's both.
Hold on. Why?
Okay, well, I said already, but I'll repeat it again. So because you are carrying the child for 9 months, right? And I can't make you abort it. I can't make you keep it. I can't do anything. Oh, whatever, trip you. I can't do anything to negate you having that child. So when my son, and I love him to death, right? I'm just going to say he wasn't planned, right? So when she said, oh, I'm pregnant, I didn't say what most guys said. Well, how did that happen, right? I said, okay, well, what are we going to do? And she says, well, I'm not ready for a child. We were both in the Army. I'm not ready either, right? So when she went to the hospital and the nurse let her hear the heartbeat, she talked out of it. We had to have a child. She called me. She said, I'm having a child. Okay. I said, I'll take care of you. I'm behind you 100 ways. I'm supporting you because I laid down with you. But again, that was her decision because you got to carry the child for 9 months. I don't have to have morning sickness. I don't have to have all those doctor's appointments. I don't have to do none of that. So again, the woman should say, hey, I don't want to have the kid, and then that's it.
I got the logistics of it. That wasn't what I was asking. The why is, one, it's a societal problem in the first place. Why are we placing your irresponsibility in the first place? Not talking about your own child. It is what it is. But why are we placing the refusal of a man to choose wisely, have these interview conversations, or just think past your penis? Why are we not willing to have those conversations in the first place and identify a potential suitor that is a wife before we lay down with them and potentially have the possibility of creating a child? Why are we not holding y'all accountable for that decision, but the weight of a lifelong impact of either giving a child away or terminating a pregnancy, terminating a life, and the impact, the holistic impact of that? Why is that our burden when you chose wrong in the first place? I know what we're able to do. Our bodies are physically capable of making children. That's what they were designed to do. But so we're responsible for your inability to think beyond your sex organ.
You're responsible for your body.
Let Nathan answer that.
Yeah, Nathan, what'd you say?
Pardon me, I picked up a cold on Thursday, so I'm a little raspy. You're responsible for your body. And at the time you become pregnant, every decision that impacts your body and that child in our country is up to you. It's not that you're being held accountable for man's and bad decisions, but you are being held accountable for your decision, your bad decision mixed with the bad decision of a man, and now where you end up at. And that's just the way our society is arranged, right?
Which is wrong.
Right. So can we change that? Like having a real conversation of saying, so we're talking about somebody 16, because that was brought up. So we have teenage pregnancy. Mm-hmm. It starts with the family. But if that young girl was not raised in a family where these conversations of education about sex are happening, she doesn't know what she doesn't know. But that doesn't mean that we get to just place all the responsibility on her. Where do we begin the conversation? Where do we create the group? So like going forward, this doesn't happen again. And then should it happen, there's resources and there's tools around it to help support and guide. But just to put it all on the woman and say, well, she laid down with this man. Well, he also did the same thing. And we are both equally responsible. And the result of our poor decision is this child. But that child should not be affected. And yes, it's my body. But if we're going to have a real conversation, this is where it gets real. The moment I say I'm pregnant is the moment that the conversation and the dialogue that was happening before, if it wasn't effective, needs to change and become effective. And then we need to surround ourselves around individuals who can help guide and educate. And we need to pick up some books and educate ourselves to have the conversations. Yes, it's my body, but what are we going to do? What are we, not me, we. What are we going to do? And if we decide that we're going to give this seed up for adoption, it's we. If we decide that we are going to terminate said pregnancy, we are having a conversation, and we're going to have to put our big boy and big girl panties on, the ones that we slid to the side to do what we did, and have a real conversation about what we are going to do. Because the body part, we know that the woman carries, but what we gonna do?
Well, I want to agree with you on absolutely. If it's my child and I find out that my partner is pregnant, married or unmarried, and my belief is I want to take it determined. I want to be the person to take care of it. I'm going to show up in court. I'm going to exercise my rights to say, no, we can't terminate this baby, or we're going to give it up for adoption. But I 100%, I might lose those battles in a court case, but I do believe it's both of our responsibilities, like you said, right at that point, because if the purpose of sex is for procreation, and I think that's where we're getting it mixed up. We're thinking the purpose of sex is for pleasure, and I'm not saying it, and it's not, and it shouldn't be part of that. But the purpose of sex is for procreation. And so if you are acting in that manner, then at that point you have made that decision before you engaged in the activity that if a child comes from this, then it's both of our responsibilities to figure out what we're going to do. And that's where I'm coming from. My first child, I was 23, 24 when I had my first child, but it was planned. It was, in our case, we were married and that's what we wanted. And we were excited and we moved on, and I have, these amazing kids. But, from the time I think I was responsible enough at 23 to be able to make those decisions. I was responsible at 18 to make those decisions. I knew what I was getting into, but I didn't want to have in my mind that this isn't my problem. This is whoever, I'm going to sleep with whoever I'm going to sleep with, and then it's their problem from that time on. If that's the way we're thinking, and then that's the way we're teaching and training and nurturing our children, then I think you're right. We need to have a lot more conversations about what it is. And I know, James, you said that's not how we think, but that doesn't mean that's not how we couldn't think or we shouldn't think. It's just we've gotten away with it for the last, I don't know. I know in the 40s and 50s, it was more of a thought than it is in the 2024. And so how do we go backwards in this thought that it's just totally the women's responsibility if we go and if in case we create that act and we create a child, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. When I look at those statistics and say, the amount of women who've never been married, so they're saying I don't need to be married, and then out of that 50% that aren't married, 75% of them, that's 3 out of 4, have children and have never been married. Or so, and I don't know, I would love to see that statistics of how many of those dads, is it 75% of those, 100% of those dads are taking care of those 75% kids? And if not, why not? Because they have this belief that it's not my responsibility.
So I'm just going to say, I think we're confusing what I said. I'm not saying I'm not responsible for my child. I'm saying ultimately it's the woman's decision to have the child or not, because it comes out of your body and not mine. Yeah, I'll hold your hand through the pregnancy and all that stuff, but I'm not going to have morning sickness and everything else. It's a greater burden, I think we can agree, on a woman than a man. So it should be up to the woman to say, hey, maybe we shouldn't have this or have this. Whatever she wanted to do, I supported her. Both of us were in the military. I was back and forth to war, theaters of war. I didn't know if I was going to live or not. I definitely knew I was going to marry her because she was not the marrying type, right? I didn't know that until we actually got into the relationship. But, we were younger, things happen, such as life. But again, I'm not saying I'm not responsible. I've taken all kinds of responsibility for my son, right? But the ultimate decision I gave her, because it's her body, I said, I will support you either way. So I have the child support paperwork to prove it to you, right?
I'm not thinking decision and responsibility are not the same thing, and so I want to separate those. If it's the woman's decision, absolutely, but that doesn't make it her responsibility. I guess it's responsibility to make the decision. I think Renee said, but haven't our laws taken the right away from men if they are being consistently told they have no rights about their unborn child? Why would they pursue responsibility?
I would say, yes, that has happened for sure. These laws have been put in place. What is that? The women's movement or what have you, to say it's a woman's body. However, a lot of us have just gone with whatever has been said and allowed. We have the power to change whatever it is that has been written that does not align with where we want to go or who we want to be as a community and people. So just because it's there doesn't mean that it is not that man's right to fight for that child. It does not mean that he does not have a voice. We will not silence him. What comes about is it's the marriage thing. So because that man and that woman are not married, then they're less than. It's not seen as whole. But that is not the case. speak up for what is your right, and maybe that woman will be open to hearing it. Maybe she is going based on her family. This has been what it is. And it's just expected that the man will not show up. And so they do this thing because the rights are theirs. But do we have to go with the okie doke just because it's been given to us? Let's redefine what that looks like.
Absolutely.
Where does that begin? Because I couldn't talk about sex in my house. So, that was not a subject we had around the table.
I mean, I agree.
There was probably also a different expectation that if you did procreate, there would be a different response to a child being created.
Okay, so
I know our education system tries to show the biological side of it, and then so our responsibility as, and in this case, we are all older, we are all mentors, we are all talking to youth, we are all. It takes a community and a village. And if our expectation is that it's going to be talked about or handled inside the house, I think we have to assume at this point that we know that's not going to happen in all households. So how do we as a community make sure that we are having these conversations? Nathan says there are massive confusion on what the laws really stipulate. There is also a huge lack of proper education around sex and reproduction. And then we even move into our court system financially says the man is responsible, because at least financially, if we find out, we do the DNA, all of a sudden now there's child support that can be done, and the court system will take away driver's license. It will put people in positions where they have to take care of financially. But I think where we even get in, and I want you guys to help me with this, where we get into even more controversy is on parenting at that point. Because so now we have women that say, well, okay, yes, this is my baby. You have to give me child support, but you don't get any say-so in how this child is raised. You better make sure that payment's showing up in my bank account, but I don't want to see you coming around here. Because I'm going to raise this child the way that I want to raise this child. Now we have another whole situation on, okay, if I'm responsible financially, why am I not responsible for parenting?
There are so many issues that we focus on that are not the primary issue.
Mm-hmm.
Child support, visitation, parenting, all of the things are secondary issues that seems to be the society's go-to at this point. Okay. I mean, my part in this is I get to teach sex education. I get to teach relationship education. I get to teach values. I get to help people identify what their values are in the first place. So where we're not making these unhealthy decisions that are going to have lifelong implications. I get to teach, I get to help people explore their own self-worth and their own self-value. The beauty of when James posted this in the chat in the first place. James, I love it. I love it. I love the banter. Oh, and I wanted to hug your neck real tight with love. But it was a matter for me. It comes back down to we have abdicated personal responsibility on both sides. So a child can be born. Okay, well, two people laid down, two people had sex. This is not talking about instances where somebody's choice was taken from them. So in these cases, two folks laid down, two folks made a whole person, or an STD or whatever. All these extra things have happened because of this one act. Okay. But we gloss over all of the personal responsibility in this in the first place. There's a reason why people are choosing to engage. Okay, sex is pleasurable. I think we all big grown ages. Yes, that is a thing. And also, I had a whole time in my 20s. I enjoyed my time in my 20s. And also, I'm now as a 40-something-year-old woman, I am learning some of the repercussions. What you said?
You said something. Your time. In your 20s.
I had a time. Mm-hmm.
What was
I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed myself.
Maybe my speakers were malfunctioning. Gotcha.
No, they wasn't. I was free. I say I lived very freely.
So you are irresponsible.
Absolutely.
So you being
Absolutely.
irresponsible, you
Are
learned
you
your
gonna let
lesson.
me finish?
But other people can't be irresponsible.
Are you gonna let me finish?
I was going to, but you stepped in the manuna, so I'm trying to clean off your shit.
No, I'm gonna come back to it. I'm gonna get into it.
I can't wait to hear from Tahani.
That's a good question.
Okay.
That's a good question.
So, yes, in my 20s, I was living very freely. I was also acting in an irresponsible manner. I am now recognizing, well, after I had my first child, which my first child was planned. Her father was not planned. She was planned. It is what it is. I chose wrong.
On that, please?
I chose wrong. I wanted a baby. So part of my growing up, one of the things that I saw growing up, I never aspired to be married because I didn't see healthy marriage models. One. Okay. So when I saw marriage, I saw men leave. And I said this in our first meeting. I saw men leave, men hit, and men don't take care of their children. That's what I saw. I did not aspire to be one of those women that happened to. So I figured if men leave anyway, okay, if men hit, one, that's not going to be my story because that don't work for me. If men leave and there's children involved, I always wanted one child. I have a great relationship with my mother, so I wanted to have a daughter so I could have that relationship like my mother and I had. But if men leave, I'm going to be responsible for my child one way or another, so I might as well just do it on my own and just cut out the middleman. Now, mind you, I'm a whole control freak, even at that young age. I had contracts. I had 3 of them. It wasn't feasible. It's not feasible for every man to be a full-time dad. So you had the option to be a part-time dad. It wasn't feasible for every man to be a full-time dad or a part-time dad. So you had the option to be a donor. Or if you wanted to be involved, but you didn't want to be involved with me, that's fine. You can still take responsibility for your child and you have all the same rights, all the same access, all the same everything. I thought this out very clearly. Okay. Again, I'm a control freak. I'm recovering. But these are the things that I presented when I found out we were pregnant because I did not make a whole mixture of fluids and create a whole life myself. So I presented those options to him. I gave him that choice. Okay. But it was still going to be something that we were going to decide together. We just did not have to be. I wanted to absolve him of the responsibility of having to be in a relationship with me because that was not the plan. That was not my plan. My plan was I was going to be a mother. I was going to have a child. I just did not plan for him to be involved. And to his credit, he was a good dad. He was a good dad. He was not a great partner. And so my decision was great in theory, but had I had a little bit more self-worth and had I known my values in that space, I would have chosen differently and I would have waited a lot longer than I waited. I also did not have the understanding and the value of what a marriage is and what the covenant of marriage offers. I did not have that value coming up. So why would I aspire to do something and be in something if I didn't understand its value in the first place? I was making decisions. I personally, yes, my personal responsibility. I was making poor decisions based off a certain lens that I was coming from, based off of what I was exposed to. That for me lies the problem for where we're at right now. We're continuing to focus on all of this external stuff instead of focusing on the internal personal responsibility, instead of focusing on teaching our babies, both male and female, how to value themselves, to understand their worth, to understand how they were designed, and to make healthy choices based off of an aspiration that they're trying to attain. We're not teaching our kids to understand the value of what marriage is because we've polluted marriage so much. We're not teaching. We're not creating an example. So why are we expecting that anything is going to change? We talk so much about child support and we talk about baby mamas and baby daddies. I would have never. And I told mine from the beginning, I'm not your baby mama. I am the mother of your child. Put some respect on it. Regardless, you had a choice to lay down with me. We had a choice to create this child. I am not a baby mama. What is that? It's so demeaning. It's so degrading.
Disgusting is what it is.
It's the lack of respect that you are willing to show for me by calling me that, and also on the reverse end, the lack of respect that you are willing to show for this person that you just procreated with, that happens to be the male. He's not a baby dad. That's so disrespectful. So So if we just stop the language in the first place on both ends, have a little bit more regard for people. It doesn't matter how they show up. Now, I don't have to respect you I don't have to respect any of the things that you do, but I can show respect for you as a person. You're human. I can honor your dignity as a human. There was something I found valuable in you at some point. We laid down together. There's something I found valuable in you. So why am I going to devalue you now for the sake of society telling me, well, that's what they are, or that's who I am? No, I'm sorry, no. So when we stop accepting it, we stop allowing it, we'll stop talking about it, and we'll stop claiming those things to be true. And folks will start acting differently when we start showing them different models. For me, again, it's the personal responsibility, but we can't make value-based decisions if we don't even understand what our own value is. We can't make value-based decisions if we have not taken the time to cultivate values. And all of this stuff should have been taught in the home. But all of these things have been so polluted, which, thank you, gives me job security. Love that. But it shouldn't be me imposing my values off on somebody else's child. It should be the families that are sharing their values and sharing their expectations of their children and how the order of life. I do believe in the order now. And I did everything backwards. And I'm recognizing as I've gotten older, and I had my first child, as I'm thinking about what I want for her life, there are certain decisions that I made in my life that impact her now. The choice of father for my child, the choice of father has a major impact on her self-esteem. And he was a good dad. He didn't understand his role and his responsibility in parenting and being a father. He still doesn't. And he doesn't understand how much that influence has either tainted or supported her image of herself. That puts an undue burden on me. However, I take it because part of that decision, part of him was my decision. I am thankful that my child is in this world. That does not devalue me as a woman. That doesn't devalue me as a woman. I made a choice. A child was created. I'm going to take care of mine regardless. He also made the choice, and I can respect the choice that he made to stay involved in her life, participate in parenting, be honorable in that space, not be disrespectful to me, because I'm the one at the end of the day that has the bulk of the responsibility. I took on the bulk of the responsibility in raising this child, but I did not do it solely by myself, nor should I have. But those are all secondary issues. It's personal responsibility that's the greater issue that we gloss over. Okay.
I want to hear from Tony though, because she hasn't had a chance to express her thoughts, and then we can come back to you, James.
Well, I think you guys summed it and wrapped it up. But just on the topic, I was just going to say that I do agree it is definitely both the men and women's decision, but I feel like it's a catch-22 because just as James has mentioned, he said that his first, I believe if I'm not misspoken, but his first wife wanted the child and she was like, oh, I don't want it. And then she decided to change her. First lady. And then changed her mind and told him that then she wanted the child. And in both decisions, he didn't really have a decision. He just kind of had to go along with whatever she decided. So while I do agree, I wanted to say I do agree that it's changing the narrative in the household. It is just we don't talk enough about kids even having worth for their spouse, for their partner. A lot of us, I know, in relationships, the children children put them against their parents. So like the child will feel like they have to choose the father, they have to choose the mother. We're never teaching them unity inside the family. So of course they're automatically going to, we're also teaching that narrative with young boys, like, hey, you can have sex with them. I've heard friends tell their son, like, you can have sex. That's just your practice rounds if you decide you want to leave, but then put the responsibility on their daughter, like, hey, if you're having sex, you're going to have to make this decision. So those conversations start at home too. So I do agree with it's changing the narrative, but so it is a big thing that society has put on people, but I don't know how you can change that in a community. Like I have me, and then I have my son, and I know how I teach him, and then I can go out and he's really shocked about how other kids who are just 8 conversate, and I can be, it's just as simple as talking about the right parts on the kid. I could explain to him like it's a vagina and a penis, and some girl went up to him about having a honey stick and a sugar bear and stuff, you know, and he's like, I don't know, she was pointing to my penis, but she said a honey stick, you know, and I think that creates, those are also the creating that narrative in the household where why people are getting touched and sexed and touched on like that. So I think, yes, we do need to change the narrative in the home, but that will take years. I don't know. And so I do think it's just a catch-22. It's so hard because we can say it's both of their decision, but ultimately it's the woman does not allow a man to say so, is what I'll say. I won't say it's not their decision, because I will say when I was having my child, I gave the father of my child, now fiance, a really big part. And I, you know, to be honest, I didn't want my baby until 4 months in, and he was like, yeah, I don't care, I want to raise the child. And he yes, there was some hiccups, but he's been there, you know what I'm saying? And but with that said, they can also say they want to be there, and you know, mistakes happen to where now you are taking care of this baby. So that, you know, for me, I just wanted to say it's a catch-22. And while I hear my women, that is just a bigger conversation. So
how do we begin to change those norms? You know what I mean? So that's my point. Like, we know what society has placed on us, and we know what we have agreed to. In some cases, we're not aware of like the full extent of what we've said yes to based on what society has told us and how we're supposed to move and be. But ultimately, we are powerful. And we're powerful together, but we can start the conversations. Just because it hasn't happened in the past does not mean that we can't change that narrative and start now. It's never too late. And so for those, it's through trauma that all of this is happening. It's passed down. So you have girls and boys who are angry and have these ideologies and paradigms that have been passed down from generation to generation, and no one is talking about it. We're passing over it, just like the video said that girls were taken to the country to have the baby and nobody talked about it. Yeah, there was a lot of shame that came from that. There was a lot of this it was more than you just being pregnant. It also had to do who you were pregnant by, because it possibly could have been that family member. And so now the family is taking that, they don't want people to know. It also had to do with age. There were a lot of different circumstances that child was being raised, or that young girl was being taken to the country to give birth. Then someone else is raising that child as their own. There were a lot of different narratives to that. That doesn't mean that's how it has to be today. We have to start the things. We have to be the change that we want to see. So if healthy conversations weren't had in the past, it doesn't mean that we stay there and continue those ineffective conversations. It means that we start, and we're not looking at, sometimes we're trying to chew too much. Simple. Tia talked about values. Right? Let's have conversations about values and what it means. How do you see yourself? What do you want for yourself? Where do you want to be? Let's start there with a foundation, so then you can continue to build upon it and grow it with these youth. I have the conversation with my son. I have that conversation. He's 19. He's not looking to have kids right now, but he also has insight to know that he wants to be a father. And he knows that he's not ready based on his values. Right now, this is not the time. He has other things. I was married when I had him at 27. Things didn't work out. But it doesn't make the situation any less, and I don't become a baby mama, and my ex-husband doesn't become a baby daddy. We don't get to diminish, and it was a horrible divorce and separation. Not at one point did I call that man my baby daddy. I made it very clear. We standing on business on this. I am the mother of your child, and you are the father. We are the parents, and I don't like everything that you do and say, but I will not diminish and dismiss and silence who you are and the value that you added by us creating this beautiful. Because when I do that, I diminish our son. I diminish everything beautiful about him. And I will not. I don't care if I don't like you. If you to come on the bottom of my shoe, or if I step in whatever, what I will not do to you as a Black man is tear you down and make you a part of the stereotype in the system. And I will not.
Yeah, and I don't want to interject because I 100% agreeing, and I'm 100% agreeing with Tia where you're saying, hey, the symptoms of the real problem are the child support, all the things that we talk about. But we are up against, if we don't know where to get the information, and the information is so put out on at least like our social media, like what we're doing, and and the little clips that James is finding for us, where we're talking about all these symptoms, and we're perpetuating and splitting apart because it's saying, well, I can say it. Statistics show that we're growing apart, not together. How do we now begin this process of, teaching and training and understanding, like what you're doing with your 19-year-old in masses? Because if it's just done, and we can say we're going to do it one family at a time, I just don't think we can keep up one family at a time. So what's our responsibility after we've learned what to do?
With a community of people.
Brotherhood Haven. She has the littles. She works with the youth. Go ahead, Tia.
I mean, part of what you're doing now, Brian, honestly, creating opportunity for the same type of information and the same type of education. I was like, this is an opening door. So all of that, like, it's a starting point. All of this stuff that's posted on social media, we also have the same access and the same authority and the same opportunity to post positive messaging, post informative messaging. And if we have more people doing that, if we have more men doing it, it helps change the narrative. But it's taking every opportunity that you can, like this. Somebody, I don't know who said it, but somebody said village. We need healthy villagers. It's not just the village. The village is already raising our kids, and the village is unhealthy. Clearly, based off of what we're seeing, most of the village is unhealthy. I don't want to say most. A lot of the village is unhealthy, but we need healthy villagers. We have to be able to just start. You can't be consumed with how many that we're getting, how many that we're reaching. We just have to start. So who's in your pocket right now? Who's in your sphere right now that you can tap into that has youth? But it's also not just the youth. Some of you have grown people that are raising their children that were also not taught, that were also not supported, that were also not cared for, who were also not encouraged. So that same reach back, that same opportunity that we have right here with these young people, we have to turn around. We can't expect any of this information to be reinforced or supported if we don't reach back to their families. So it has to be a multi-generational effort. It has to be a multi-generational approach. And there has to, I love teenagers and young adults. That's my mission. That's my jam. But because I know that my teenagers and my young adults are being raised by my 30s and 40 somethings in my generation, I'm going to talk to you like I would be talking to my sister, because I have an impact. And I'm an extension of you. I'm a healthy villager. I don't have a dog in this fight other than to see you be well, other than to see your kids be well. And also I know that they're the next generation. So I want my kids that are also part of that next generation to not follow in some of our footsteps. And having the conversation, getting naked with this conversation in the first place. What are some of the fears? What are some of the things that have been perpetuated? What are some of the things that we bought into? What are some of the things that we've appropriated? What are those things? And actually just have some honest dialogue in the first place before we try to go too far into, changing the narrative for the masses. We have to just start in our own backyard. We have to start in our own homes, but then we have to start in our own backyard. And if you're not equipped to start the conversation in your home, this is an opportunity. Hey, I teach, a couple of us.
And we started the conversation about talking about responsibility. And when I see and I hear what you're saying, and I'm hearing what James is saying, what Nate's is saying, and we're saying as men, we don't have even the opportunity to raise some of our own kids or our own boys. Our women are so strong in, you are not going to do this, and this, that it makes it well, should we even do it? And then we start believing our own press, right? That, well, our young men believe this way, and this is how it's going to be, and they're going to be. How do we work with our beautiful women with saying, wait a minute, we are dads, we are strong, we have the ability to have these conversations with our boys and be an example, but it's hard to be an example when the things that are coming out of the opposite sex's mouth and what they're showing and what they're saying is so, I guess, strong and opposite of what we're trying to do.
You're always going to have opposition wherever you go.
Yeah.
You're always going to have opposition. But you've got 3 women that are supportive of Black men on this call. There are more of us that are supportive of men and fathers.
Millions of you, right?
Say one more time.
There's got to be millions of you. Go ahead, James.
I'm sorry. I was losing my thoughts with all the conversation. There's a lot to unpack. I'm just going to start. You said it begins at home with the family, correct? Is that what you said today? Now, you are under the assumption that there's a nuclear family.
No, I'm not.
Father, a mother, and children, because we have 2 totally different concepts when it comes to sex, love, marriage, men and women, right? And when you said when you were younger, you made a mistake, blah, 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 that's because there was a shift in your checklist. Allow me to explain. When you're younger, right, a female, you looking for the guy with the nice body, has a little hood in him, criminal, right? The guy who is, athletic, all this stuff, right? Looks good. But when you get older, those are things in your checklist. 6 foot tall, sexy, good teeth, all that. When you get older, about 40, 50, right? You might not have no teeth. But as long as you can provide security, right? Take care of you and love you, right? That is what more women after age 30. Now, I got 6 sisters, right? And I'm telling you, they were looking more security, right, than they were with the guy with the muscles and all that stuff when they were 18, right? At 18, you wasn't thinking about buying a house and security and all that stuff. You were more worried about the sexy guy. You want the basketball player, the rapper, and all that. Well, around my way, that's how it was, right? And then some of the examples that we had to go off of weren't the examples you had to go off. So every situation is different, especially if you grew up in the city, right? In the city, I had a very good friend, right? He had a son before me, right? He didn't have those deep conversations. He was like, sex, go get him, right? There was no, let's sit down and have an intellectual conversation. Let's drink some tea and figure out the best way to go, right? The guys just wanted women. And I'm a victim of that. When I was 18, 17 years old, I know Nathan was, right? Dr. B, I'm not sure, but you got 8 kids. So, I'm sure you had some of those thoughts too. I never did it in a negotiation with a lot. There wasn't a lot of talking. When I messed with a woman, you get to know her. Hey, how you doing? You like ice cream? Okay, let's go to your house. You have some contraceptive, right? That's the extent of those deep conversations you have at 16 to 18 years old. I'm just being honest. I'm keeping it real, right? Nowadays, you can have those conversations. And if you recall, I told you when I met my wife, I gave her a counseling statement. This is what I will accept. That's what I won't accept. She told me her dreams and aspirations. I told her my dreams and aspirations. We molded together, and we're trying to make that work individually and collectively. But don't make the assumption that everybody has your mindset. I mean, you 50, 40 years, I don't know how y'all all look 25, but I'm sure you're older than that, right? So those bad decisions you made, right? Some people have to learn on their own, and it's personal responsibility, right? I tell all my sisters, if you lay down with somebody, right? My father had this conversation with you too. You have to be careful because you're the one, the guy might walk.
Did he freeze for everybody else?
Yes, he did. He did. We'll get a couple more seconds to come back in, and then we'll just resume. And see that as being, what he's saying is how he sees. Are you back, James?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Everybody went out.
Go ahead. You can finish your thought.
I would blame it on my baby mama. That's not the right terminology. She's probably outside the wire. heard me talking about it. Anyway, back to what I was saying. You guys, you three are very intelligent, beautiful, educated. But people growing up in the hood or varying circumstances, which we are, because we are the lowest on the totem pole when it comes to median household incomes, right? So, we don't have those conversations. Most parents, like my parents, didn't talk about a lot of stuff like that. We were kids. You go sit in the other room, this is grown folks conversation, you stay out of it, right? But sex and money, right? We didn't talk about those in my house, right? I was never taught how to invest. My father never gave me a class on sex. My mother, she never had those conversations with me, right? She never had any kids out of wedlock. So, and I'm leaving here, let you guys, duke it out. But you said it doesn't decrease your value on having a child out of wedlock. I would disagree, right? Because I've dated women with children, right? Now, if you have 2 kids, it's me, you, those 2 kids, and the 2 baby daddies or 1 baby daddy, whatever. You're bringing somebody else into our household, right?
That's right.
I've dated women with children before, right? I was single for 11 years. It was horrible, right? Because you get to know her, right? But a lot of women can't parcel your relationship, the relationship with the kids, and the baby daddy, right? Now, I can't discipline somebody else's kids, but they're living in my house and feeding them? Absolutely not. They're going to live by my rules, not the baby daddy rules. And he can get mad all he wants to. But if you got a fast daughter that's out here running amok and bring these guys to my house, then I have to, pull those coattails. Same with your son. I was dating a woman in Atlanta. I was seeing her for a while, and she had 2 kids. So I'm wrestling with the kid we just playing, right? Don't do that. I was just tickling. Don't do that. I said, why? He's going to go back and tell his father that you put hands on him. We're going to have a problem. What are you talking about? So, again, it is extra for a man to deal with somebody else's kids, not devaluing you as a person. Great human being. She was a great person, right? And in her younger years, she had children, right? Again, it's personal responsibility. But now, why should I suffer and deal with 2 other baby daddies, 2 other people in my relationship? I would have bad dreams, me and her in the bed, and each baby daddy on either side coaching me or telling me what not to do, right? That's not a good look. Not a good look. I'll leave it there.
I'm gonna say this. I think the word choice is poor. When we're talking about devaluing or it lowers your value, no, it creates an inconvenience. I think that's true. It creates an inconvenience for somebody to have a child that they're bringing into a new relationship or a marriage. Totally understand that. Agree with that. Yes, there are other factors and other considerations when somebody has a child, just like there are when a man is bringing a child into the situation. But to say that having a child, regardless whether it's out of wedlock, whether there was a widow or widower relationship, where there's a child that was created that is attached to that person, claiming that as their value is a no. And then I'm going to go back to something else you said. I never said I made a mistake. I made choices. I claim and I own my choices. I learn from my decisions. I learn from my behavior. My choices taught me lessons. There are decisions that I would make again, and there were decisions that I would not make again. I learned a lesson. They were not mistakes. They were choices. And I was not under the impression, nor have I ever been under the impression that I was talking about nuclear families. I'm talking about nuclear families. I'm talking about families that are intact. I'm talking about families that are not intact. I'm talking about families that are from a parenting unattached standpoint. I'm talking about all the families because those are all the youth that I deal with. Those are all the parents that I deal with. So in any kind of situation, it doesn't matter. It does not take 2 people to teach value. If you have a 1-parent household, and I don't say single parent unless somebody has nobody else, you're parenting unattached. Okay. So I think there are values that are taught specifically by men, by fathers, and I think there are values taught specifically by mothers. So when one of those people is missing, there are values that are not being taught appropriately, and we're going to fall into some learning lessons later in life. But part of that is where self-esteem and self-value and self-worth does come into play. Those are pieces that were missing. Those were areas that were not instilled into this young person. I'm not talking just about the nuclear family. You can have two parents in the household and still not be taught. You can still not be taught. So I'm not under the guise that that's the reality. I'm aware, I'm acutely aware of how our families are set up right now.
And that was a very witty retort. But I will say that when I was talking about the nuclear family, men and women think differently.
Absolutely.
And those thoughts are conveyed to the child, right? So unless you have a male and a female in the same house, right, the child is not going to get the exposure from both sides of the fence, right? I had that exposure, and I think that made me a gentleman. My mother made me open the door for her and stuff like that. Where in the projects right down the street, right, some of my people that didn't have a mother and a father, right, were raised in a skewed fashion, where they didn't have the insight of the mother or the father, right? And when you say there's other people that they can rely on to teach the kid, you can't do that because you don't know what's out in the street. You don't know what the other person is teaching your kid. Most of the kids learn today from YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, MTV, whatever it is, right? It's not necessarily in the home. Very little education is given in the home, right? And, while I agree with you guys with the deep conversation and everything, but again, those deep conversations not happening at 16, 18 years old, right? It's not happening.
Maybe not with everybody, but I do believe they are happening with some people. Yes, I do. And maybe, yes, it does matter on the household. I agree. But I do believe that those conversations are being had. I was one of them who was having conversations at 16. And I felt like maybe, and my fiance can attest, like he probably felt I was grilling him then, but shit, I had to know, are you like good with, like, to find out if you're good with money, to find out if you're, better with, to just find, I don't know. I maybe not everybody, but I do feel it depends on what you're doing in the household. Yeah. I would disagree on that is all I would say.
So if we're having deep conversations, why is there so many one-parent households, single parents, mothers, right? Single mothers, right? And unwed fathers. Why is the movement not to get married, but just to have some fun and do your thing, right? And I'm just being real with you, being honest.
No,
right?
I agree.
I think it has to do. Well,
right?
It has to do with the way that if we're looking at the Black family, there was a separation that had to happen. That it didn't have to happen, but it happened so that our power could not be pushed forward generation to generation. So we have to look at the history of why. And then people, like Tia said, she did not see. She had three things that she saw when she was growing up, which, like, it prompted her to make the decision not to be married. And so a lot of these youth, they do have values. They may not know how to articulate it. They may not have been in these conversations, but a lot of people don't want what they are seeing that is being perpetuated in society of what marriage is. You see a lot of foolery. You see a lot of shucking and jiving. You see a lot of fakeness. And so these kids are not dumb. They know that they don't want that. And so if this is what you're offering and this is all that I have to go on, I'll just do my own thing, because you're not showing me anything different as far as what social media or that is in any of the families around. They're like, well, I know that I don't want to be abusive, but I'm surrounded around it. And So I'll just not get married. If this is what it is and I have to be demeaned, or if I have to be abused by this woman's tongue who is speaking death and harming me, I'll just not. And so if I see a pretty girl or whatever, I'm going to do what I have to do and I'm going to keep it pushing. Right? It's what we are showing them. And so we have to change that. And we do have to look at the history of why we are in the state that we are in right now. A single parent, I don't call myself a single parent. I did parent alone for a time without my ex-husband, but I'm not single as far as the people that I had around me to support. Now, everyone doesn't have that support, but I'm not a single mother. Sometimes they make you check that box off on things, but there's a reason behind it. But we have to do better for those of us that are educated and have the resources and the tools and the information for these youth and for these families. It is our duty to share it. Now, what they decide to do with it, that's not my business or ministry. I cannot control you.
Where are we seeing that being alone, doing it on your own, going on your own works and works well? That would be the desire, or is it just we see such a negative in doing it together that we don't want any part of that? Even if doing it alone isn't that great, it can't be as bad. Where are we at in that? Because I don't see a ton of examples where there's a whole bunch of thriving, single or doing it, without another person, whether with children or just living life in general, as like the happiness of, this is the ultimate happiness that I would love to achieve.
I think happiness and thriving are segmented. I don't think it's their full life, but I think in certain areas of their life where they're not willing to compromise and the stakes are way too high for me to be in a relationship or in a marriage with somebody. One, marriage is distorted. Again, the idea of marriage has been polluted. The concept of marriage has been polluted. So there's that. But if I'm having to trade off, having somebody talk down to me, tell me what I'm going to do, whatever the trade-off looks like that they're measuring it against, if that is too high, too great of a cost to pay, I would rather do it myself. I'd rather be over here by myself. So in this space, I'm calm, I'm cool, I'm good, I'm going to do it my way. So I don't have at this point, why would you have a desire? If that's what you're subjecting yourself to, because that's all you've been shown, it's all you see, it's all you know, it's all that other people, and then you got other people that have their opinions and their extra comments and commentary and all of that stuff coming into the picture too. And all that they're talking about is in their relationship, it's this, and there's minimal calm and happy and peace. Why would you want that? So again, we have to change the narrative. And just because it's always been done this way, or it's only been presented this way, does not mean that we can't start talking differently. We can't start showing something different. There needs to be more of a concerted effort to start showing something different. I personally have these very intentional, very raw conversations. And I do let my folks know where I was on both sides of the spectrum, where I'm at now, where I was, and why I was. I think a lot of what we don't do is talk about the why. And so to Tanisha's point, there's some history, there's some origins, and then there's also what you observed. To James's point, generational. There's certain things that were not allowed to be talked about. So there's things that we're seeing though. So let's talk about the things that we're seeing. And then is this something that's actually your belief, or is it just something that you've just come up knowing? And then we don't offer an alternate perspective. We don't challenge other people's perspectives. I get to, which makes it happy for me. But in order for me to challenge your perspective, I have to be willing to talk about it first. And I have to be a safe and open adult to be able to answer your whys and answer your odd questions. So more of us need to be in that space.
Yeah, I mean, I see us having to talk about our wins as much as we talk about all the things that are wrong. We get on it, and I love hearing James' story. He's figured out a way to make it work. How many people get to know what that is and how he's doing it and how his relationship works, and that they've come together and figured it out. But I think we spend so much time talking about what doesn't work and what somebody's doing wrong and all the things that scare us you know, fear and anxiety are real things when it comes to relationships, because if we don't know and we haven't experienced, you know, the thriving, great part of our relationship, and all we can remember is what we saw, what we heard, and all these bad things, we tend to just think we just go to that side and never even get to see why it's so much better not to be alone. And we have to come from that foundation that it's, you know, ultimately it's better to be with somebody than it is to be alone. Nathan, I haven't heard you in a while. You still there?
You're muted.
I'm still here. I'm just taking everything in. So, because I have like a story about almost every angle that you guys have talked about. Meaning, I have a cousin. She has 11 children. So I've experienced with the impact of having a woman in your life who's a family member who has multiple fathers of her children, multiple children. I never wanted to be married, never wanted kids. I used to say this in college all the time. I have 2 sons now, and they're from the same mother, my ex-wife. She's now deceased. I think I'm a pretty good father. I get that feedback that I am, so I'm going to believe what people say. But I like to tell people that I don't necessarily like kids. I like my kids. And that's, you know,
I love it.
Flip-flops, right? I do think that it's, I think what you said, Dr. B, is getting at trying to decipher, I guess, what we lose, like James is trying to point to, of having that nuclear family, which I do think is the ultimate model, as opposed to all of the other models that just seem to be, some of them work great. There's some great, you know, success stories out there of single motherhood, single fatherhood. I'm a single father. I think my son is thriving. But when I question myself, I still believe that the nuclear family is ideal. Again, like James said, for a reason that it's not just what men think and women think, it's how we are. It's our way of being. That even in the most well-intentioned scenario, a woman can't provide what a man needs. Like, I love my mom to death. I think I mentioned to you guys, she was out here visiting with me for a month. And not just because she's my mom, but she really propelled me in life. I really mean it. This woman was like a drill instructor. However, we've come to that mother-son understanding about the things I had to seek out on my own from other men that she could not provide. She was very fond of saying, hey, I think you're a great man, but there was just things in me that she couldn't provide. So I think, like you said, Dr. B, it just seems like there's such a huge issue and a huge sense of urgency with the apparent reported status of current Black families, you know, with so many single parents, the outcomes of Black children in schools, particularly Black males, which is atrocious. Sometimes it feels like it's overwhelming. Like, I don't even know where to begin. As I mentioned, I've watched panels like this on YouTube for decades now, for about a decade and a half. And there's so many great answers, but I don't know how we pull it all together. And that's kind of where I'm stuck at. It's just enough people having the conversations to get at. Sorry about that. Sorry.
We don't have to pull it all together. Everybody does something. Everybody has some kind of point of view. It's just start. Again, start in your home. And if it's not in your home, start in your backyard. So if your home is already good, start in your backyard. Who are the men that you have in your circle? What conversations are you having with the men? I 100% agree with you as far as the limitations of women raising sons. I have a son. I know I am not equipped to teach him how to be a Black man. I'm a Black woman. Mm-hmm. So I can teach him what I know. I can teach him to be a good human, but my responsibility is to make sure that he has a strong Black man in his life that's teaching him how to be a Black man. So, and I think that's the responsibility of any mother with a son, is to make sure that she has, if she does not have the father of her child in the home or attached, then it is her responsibility to rally around healthy Black men around that boy. So that's not always accessible, though. It's not always accessible.
Yep.
So
not too many Black men that have achieve the level of success or education or finances or anything to teach or convey it to your son, and you don't know, you might know people up front. Remember we was talking about meeting people's representative? You don't know what they're doing behind closed doors. I'm sure there's a lot of stepfathers, right, that are getting maybe too close to the daughters, right? I mean, there's, in my mind, if I had a daughter, I'd be very suspect of the mother of my child, right, having another man move in the house, because I'd have to vet him. I don't know what's going on. So
I'm not always saying move in, though. I'm just saying it's our responsibility to make sure that there is access, and that access can be supervised. That access can be, there's also just in general, like, there are healthy people that we navigate life with. Who are the healthy men that you navigate life with? I can tell you for my daughters, they had their dads, and their dads are white. And again, this is one of the results of my poor choosing, that I'm recognizing the impact on my daughters. So again, on me, I have to navigate that. That's my responsibility. And also, because I did not choose well, and because I chose men that could not identify with who they were going to become or who they were coming into as Black women, young Black women, I have a different responsibility to make sure that they have access to healthy Black men around them. That's my work. Now, my son, on the other hand, my son is a different story. My son is an all Black boy. And fortunately, he has a few amazing Black men in his life. Again, my daughters, I grew up without my dad also. So I understand the value of not having a father, and which is why I wanted my children's fathers to be present. And there are two, just for, yes, value still there. But
no judgment.
Even if you do, it's fine. We still have a responsibility to make sure that they have access to healthy men. And part of that vetting process, like, you're not just coming up, and these are not men that you're sleeping with. These are not men that you in situationships and entanglements with. No, you need to be surveying the land. You need to be talking to other men that you do see that are healthy. And I can appreciate, yes, people show up with their representatives, but there's a vetting process. I'm not giving you access to my son if I don't know some details, and I ain't done some background checks and references and all of this stuff, because there are creeps. And I don't want my son, and there's still a possibility you cannot protect your children from everything. Yeah. You can't. But it is it's our job to do some due diligence and make sure that we have some healthy access to have healthy men around our children if we don't have the father in the home. Let
me ask you a question. What is your vetting process to tell if a man's good enough? Because I've vetted a whole lot of people and they've always disappointed. So please explain to me how you can 100% vet somebody and know their thoughts at all times. Please.
So again, you can't 100% vet somebody, because people are people, humans are humans. However, I can pay attention to behavior. I can pay attention to actions and words. I can pay attention to see if there's congruency in those things. I can talk to the people that are closest to them. I can talk to the people that are around them. I can pay very close attention. I can be very observant. I can ask people that I actually trust for their opinion and their thoughts and some considerations, and what things should I be asking about? What things should I know? I can get real nosy. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm an interviewer. So I get real nosy, and I don't necessarily, I know it's weird. I know you couldn't see it, didn't see it coming, but I get super nosy, and it's not just, it's not just nosy about that person or to that person. I'm nosy with everybody I see in your sphere. I want to talk to the little boys around you. I want to talk to the little girls around you. I want to talk to the women around you. I want to talk to people that you done dealt with before. If it's a coach, folks that are already in these positions of authority, and I'm still going to have a watchful eye. I still want to know what kind of engagement, and I still have a duty to protect my child. So no, you're not going off with my child somewhere until my child is able to talk and tell me what's going on, who's going on, until I've done my job and help prepping my child for what's okay, what's not okay. I have that responsibility. But there's also, I have a community of people around me, and I'm watching for congruency.
Yeah.
I'm interviewing. I'm talking to the friends that I have because I trust my judgment and I trust the people that I'm going to have around me, the folks that are in my circle. I trust my folks. And so by proxy, I'm going to lean to them first. I'm going to yield to them first and ask them, hey, who's in your life or who's done what for your child? If I know that they're in a similar situation, or even if they're not in a similar situation, if they're in an intact family, hey, you know what? This is what's going on. Or can I just get your advice? I'm going to see what the advice is that you give me. And then I'm going to ask for examples in your life.
So you could talk to you blue in the face to a lot of kids, right? My grandfather's Tuskegee Airman. My father was a construction guy, all that. They gave me all these lectures about women, my mother, my and guess what? Well, I lost my virginity at 9. But basically after that, I mean, you know, electric socket, I'd go for it, right? I'm trying to make it nice for the podcast. But, you know, again, you can talk to adolescents forever. But if they have sex or thinking about having sex, you're not going to stop them, right? The first time I had sex, I was wondering, I said, does my father know about this? Nobody told me about this, right? And I wanted more and more, right? So the conversations, those deep conversations, a 16-year-old child. Now, you guys, children are exceptions, right? But you can go to any city, New York, Chicago, LA, whatever, and I guarantee you those parents are not having those deep conversations with those kids. And females to be, I don't know of any black woman, and I don't know all black women, over 30 years old that are virgins. Do you?
I do, actually.
Do you?
Yeah. I know a couple men also.
Yeah, and I think,
Fran, I really hate when you generalize.
I'm just saying. I'm just talking my word. I don't. Do you know any 30-year-old male virgins? I don't. I don't know any females or males. Okay.
So I think this is a really good spot for us tonight to call it, because I think we have to really get to what I would love to have is I want to start having maybe some resources, because what I learned tonight and what I came out with is we have some value issues. We have some ability to get to our youth and be able to teach them. James, I'm agreeing with you. Just because they have doesn't mean that we still shouldn't have the conversation. We shouldn't say because you're doing what you're doing, we shouldn't talk to you about the consequences of what you're doing. I think we still have to have all these conversations and continue having them. Next week, we have a special guest who's coming on. His name is Nate Turner. He's done a couple TED Talks. One is called We Owe Generation Z an Apology Today. And so Nathan, he planned out his son's life before he was even born and what it was going to look like. From the story he told me, he said that he didn't want to have kids. He watched The Lion King. Him and his wife went to The Lion King. He thought he saw Mufasa be a great dad to Simba, and they decided they were going to have a kid. But they decided from like the day their child was born, what his life was going to look like when he was 30 or when he was 40. And now the child is 30, or his son is 30, and is, you know, and is doing tremendously well. They decided, you know, before that he was going to go to an Ivy League school, that he was going to have all these opportunities. He was going to learn vocabulary and learn languages and all these things that they put into as not growing up. Come from, I guess, Gary, Indiana, which is, you know, probably the most black city in the whole entire country as far as, you know, all the things and that happened there and all the things that they went through. And so I think it'll be great to have him as part of our dialogue, as part of our conversation. Today was great. Today was amazing. Thank you guys. I'll give you a chance to give another, like a 30-second, 1 minute closeout today. But I think we started really digging into the issue, which is hard. You know, it's easier to talk about all the symptoms and all the things that go on, but when we really start looking not only at our own lives, but at the lives of the mistakes and the things that we've made, sometimes those get deeper and harder to talk about. So I appreciate you guys being willing to have those conversations with this group, because I know it's going to help others. So I'll start with you, Nate. You can have whatever your last final thought is, and then I'll go to Tanisha, and then I'll go to Kahani, and then end with Tia.
Well, I apologize for coughing so much, everyone, and I'm just looking forward to talking more. Again, like I said, I I still view podcasts all across YouTube, but I really think we're starting to distinguish a lot of very important issues from different angles that I haven't heard on other podcasts. I think maybe because we're a little bit older, and it's a good thing. So I'm just glad to be a part of the team and looking forward to really digging in more on some of these issues.
I want to say thank you for everyone that has shared their voice on here today. For me, I just want to end with, like, for my son being a Black woman, it was important to me to place him around individuals that could help him grow into the 19-year-old that he is today. I recognize as a mother that I was not able to do those things that a man could do, and I didn't want to be clear. I didn't want to step into those shoes because those are not mine. I'm feminine energy. I know what my purpose is as a mother. So I was intentional about placing him and asking for help to guide him in that way from men who I observed. And it didn't necessarily mean it was men in my family. Taking some of the things that they had that were great, but also recognizing that there were people that I was surrounded around that could also pour into him. And so Mr. Meeks being one, I will say his name because he was one of the people I reached out to say, help my son, because I don't want to do it by myself. Everyone doesn't have access to that, but it doesn't mean we can't create the access and we can't create the resources and the tools. I had someone say to me, and I'll wrap this up, as I was raising him, my soft voice, you need to put some bass in your voice. And it was confusing. So I tried it. It was very uncomfortable. And I was like, I don't want to do that. You need to man up. You need to. And I thought, this is what is being perpetuated in other families with other women who are parenting alone or parenting without the connection of that father there. They're being told to step into a man's shoes, which is also a part of the trauma and the disconnect with, like, our ideologies and paradigms of raising kids, it being the woman's choice and all of that. So I think it is surrounding ourselves around healthy conversations, people who have healthy mindsets to provide the right information to help our communities thrive in this particular area. I took that bass out of my voice and I continue to be the mother that I knew how to be, leaning on resources. Pass it on. Thank you for today.
All right.
So I just want to say thank you. This has been an amazing conversation. And I do just kind of want to piggyback off of what Tanisha was saying. I know we spoke about a lot of, women being not with the father or fathers not being with the women, but also just I wanted to say this earlier. I think that narrative can be changed by just having circles and relationships on how to speak to both the men and the women, period. I feel like a lot of people, whether they, supposed to speak into Tia's point too, they either didn't want to get married because of what they saw in the home and didn't have to be them being in separate homes. And I think that's important. We try to tell kids, hey, I'm married. It doesn't matter about being in a bad relationship or unhealthy, but having more of those conversations of what does healthy relationships look like. And that can't happen until I don't think it needs to start with just relationships. It needs to start with the love for one another, period. Like, we need to be in rooms and, like, for instance, like my son, telling him to acknowledge not only the women in the room, but his friends in his room, acknowledging them as people just to uplift them, because that's all we really need. So I think the narrative starts with changing how we speak to each other as men and women, period, and thinking about that as a collective, because that's how the community will grow healthy. We can't start with individual families, because then, like Dr. Brian said, it will only be in that family, and then that doesn't really help. So yeah, I just wanted to leave that with everyone, and thank you, because tonight was amazing.
All right, thank you. James.
You're muted.
You're muted.
You're talking, you're muted.
I'm sorry. My bad.
There you go.
You guys out earlier. I just want to thank everybody for the deep conversation. Tia, I feel like I'm on the couch sometime and you got your pad out and you're analyzing me. Let me know what you come up with. I'm a realist, and maybe my time in the Army, I get straight to the point and I'm blunt, right? And I have a habit of generalizing because most of our problems are on the whole, not individual, right? So I can't give you the cure. So what ails the Black community? But the number one thing is, for me, my understanding is communication. Because we have to learn how to communicate. We have to have thick skin, right? And then, like you say, some of the baby daddy, baby mama, all these terms, right? They are demeaning. I agree with you. However, they're prevalent, and that's an easy go-to, right? Sometimes, and we just got to get that common vernacular down. But again, great conversation. I enjoy these talks. Thank you, Dr. B, for having them, and I'll keep sending you guys these videos, whether you like them or not.
Love it. Thank you. Tia.
Yeah. Again, appreciation, gratitude for everybody. James, you're my favorite. You're just my favorite. I at the end of the day,
Flattery will get you everywhere.
What?
Flattery will get you
everywhere. Stop.
Talk to some of these boys. There
That's
you go.
My feminine side.
For me, it still comes back down to collective responsibility. If we want the narrative to change, we have to be willing to do our part to change the narrative. We have to step into our own collective responsibility. We got to be showing more dignity just to humans in general, to people in general. We need more love. And that's it. That's it. Love, period. But I think we need to have hard conversations. We need to be confrontational in that space. Confrontational and combative are two separate things, but we need to be confronting the narratives that we're perpetuating instead of just consuming them, and reinforcing them. If we want anything to change, we have to start having the conversations. And wherever, if those conversations are big, if those conversations are small, this is a great start. This is a huge contribution. This is a huge value add. But at the end of the day, if we don't continue these conversations outside of the digital space and in our homes and in our backyards, we're going to have this conversation again next year, the same time next year. So, resources. I do teach relationship education. I do teach sexual education. There's a whole bunch of stuff I teach. I do life skills in general, and I would love to be a resource. So, primarily teenagers and young adults, but I'll reach back into the rest of the family too. Bring everybody.
Absolutely. So. And please make sure you share that. We'll put it in the comments. We'll put it in the, where people can reach out and access the resource if you're listening to this. And for those of you who are listening, the reason that you are probably identifying with this is because there's a ton of experience in this. If it's just the 6 of us tonight and the rest of us who have been on, because we've been there. We've been, I would love to tell you that it's way different in your life. I think the biggest difference is if you're younger is you've had technology and you've had access to more information than we could have ever imagined at your age. But at the same time, there's success that leaves clues. And if you want to have some meaningful relationships and you want to make sure that it works, this is a great place to go. So thank you all for being part of another edition. We'll be back next Sunday night. Again, we'll have a guest on that can talk about how he raised his son. And we'll continue just to move forward as we continue to grow ourselves, as we continue to learn. So you guys have an awesome, amazing, incredible day. Don't forget your God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. And we'll talk to you on the next one.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.